My name is Jessie, and I just finished my first year at Harvard University. I lead one of CollegePass's series, which is about applying to Harvard. What I think, they look for in their candidates, some of my experiences, and just various components about life at Harvard, whether that be academics, extracurriculars, or just answering any questions at all that crop up.
Thank you so much for joining. Spotlight today is on the university and speaking on. We're the director of the office. He's going to be what St. Andrews is in terms of their applicants, aspects to the application process. We're please share your screen. Hi.
Hello. Hopefully the screen is visible and
Yes.
we can go ahead.
Absolutely. We all have any questions throughout the, please type them out in the chat and we'd be happy to address them to you.
Thank you. I think I'll take the liberty today of reintroducing myself to you all. I think I'm here in two different roles today. Of course, officially as the director of our global office in India, but more importantly, I'm also an alum of the University of St. Andrews. So, taking you back 10 years, I was in high school in the year 2012, completing my IB diploma in Delhi. Applying to various universities around the world, and it was always a dream of mine to go to the University of St. Andrews and study there. And I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to do that. So I'll be taking bits from my experience today. Today is about learning more about the university, of course, but I'll try and add bits from my experience as an applicant studying there, as an alum as well, and hopefully those bits help add to the overall information that I'll be passing on to you today, and it helps in your journey applying as well. So what I want to cover today really is three parts, and I'll start off with giving you a little bit of an introduction to St. Andrews, but also talk about the Scottish degree structure, which a lot of people don't know much about. And I think there's some myths that we can probably bust today in terms of the Scottish degree structure. But what I really want to focus on is being a highly competitive university. What do we look for in an application? And I'll be talking in detail about the three components that make for a good application. So these are the three aspects I'll be discussing with you today. I'll do these in different bits. They won't follow the exact structure mentioned here, but hopefully this helps you follow the presentation and make sure that I cover a lot of the content that I do want to. So I think firstly, let's talk about Scotland. When we talk about the United Kingdom, we instantly think of England. But the United Kingdom actually has four countries. We've got Scotland, Wales, England, and Northern Ireland. So St. Andrews is based in Scotland. We're about a 1 hour drive from Edinburgh, which is the capital. And there's really good links in terms of international flights as well as public transport. So a lot of times we get this question about where is it and how do you get there, and it's really very convenient. As a student, it didn't take me more than about 12 hours. You have to stop over once, but you can fly directly into Edinburgh and be in St. Andrews in about 13 hours or so from Delhi. So it's really accessible. You can use public transport as well. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about that. There's often questions about location, and I think that's important to address as well. That's St. Andrews. That's probably not what you were expecting. I won't lie, not every day is like this. Is a particularly good summer day at St. Andrews, but we've got an historic town. We were founded in 1413. We're over 600 years old. The town and university grew up together. You have the cathedral ruins, cobble streets. You've got some accommodation, which is centuries old in age. We do have the beach, and surprisingly enough, it's probably the driest part of the United Kingdom. So, being by the coast, we don't get a lot of snow, and we don't have that extreme those extreme temperature ranges that you might find in the central parts of Scotland. So, weather really is less of a factor when we talk about St Andrews. So let's briefly address some important aspects, right? So when we talk about St Andrews, really for me there's five important aspects that I want to talk about. There's obviously many more that we can discuss later on when we have questions as well, but I wanted to pick out five important aspects that were important to me as a student. And I think the first aspect is really the community. When we talk about universities across the United Kingdom, you tend to see two different brackets. You see city universities, universities that are based in larger cities and towns, and then you see the more campus style universities, and that's where we fall in that bracket. So St Andrews is a community of about 22,000 people, and about 10,000 of that community is students. And if you take another 1,000, that'll be staff members and academics. And so 1 in 2 people you meet on the street are likely to be associated with the university in some form. And that really creates that community, that society where people can feel safe and protected. I think it's a really, really unique aspect about St Andrews. And what that leads to as well is small class sizes, that personal attention, whether it be in the classroom, whether it be at a level where you're working with the careers office and you can get that one-on-one support, just general support services that you might need. There is that personalized approach that we can give, being a small to mid-sized university and having that strong sense of community for our students. What I will also say is it's extremely diverse. And when we talk about diversity, no one population is actually dominant. So we have about 40% of our students that come from outside the United Kingdom. And having been a student there, I can say it's unique also because everyone is coming from the outside into this town to study, and it creates a very unique environment where you can learn off each other. And being a smaller size town, you're almost forced to meet other people and um, and integrate into that kind of international community. So very inclusive, very international, and this extends to our academics as well. So academics aren't from just the United Kingdom. I had professors who were from the United States. We have some Indian professors there, and that again leads to a very diverse and inclusive community. The third point really is academic excellence, and a lot of times we talk about rankings and how important or not important they are in the larger scheme of making a decision, but we are very, very proud of being the number one university in the United Kingdom, and also number one for student experience. So going back to busting some myths, often we get this question about being in a smaller town, do students actually have a lot to do? And I think this is something that we're very proud of, that the student experience is really strong, and often a university town can provide you with those opportunities that maybe you don't get in a city as well. We're also very, very strongly committed to sustainability, and we have an aim of being a net zero and sustainable organization by 2035. So I think that's important. Today we live in a world where we do have to cater to these aspects, and the university certainly takes that into consideration at every level. The fifth and most exciting part, and I'll give you a little personal story here when I talk about traditions, but being a university that's over 600 years old, and something that newer universities probably don't have, is a lot of history, culture, tradition. And all our students love to take part in this. And I'll give you my own examples. You can imagine I came back after my first year studying at St Andrews, and my parents came to pick me up at the airport, and they said, okay, how was your first semester? And I said, yeah, I've got a new mom and dad. And I could just see the fright on their faces, and I had to very quickly follow up by saying, these are academic families. It's a tradition of St Andrews, and that's where third years adopt first years as academic kids. And so you have a mom and dad and uncles and aunts and siblings, and it's just a very nice informal way of integrating into university life, and they become some of your closest friends and mentors, and they've been through all the academic part of university life, as well as the social aspects, and they can really guide you through it. But equally, your siblings and cousins become the best of your friends as well. So it's just something nice. So this is just one tradition, but you have the foam fight, which is like playing, for Indians, we love Holi. It's like playing Holi with foam in the university lawns. It's just very, very special to be part of these traditions, and knowing that these traditions have been going on for centuries. So this is another very unique aspect about St. Andrews. And I think, lastly, what really makes St. Andrews stand apart is the degree structure. And I'll talk about this in the next few slides. But that's really the fifth and most important part of studying at St. Andrews. So let's move on and really talk about something which is maybe on your mind. I remember I applied to universities in England, in Scotland, in the United States. And this slide really is something that I have found from my time applying. So please, this is generalized and this is my own personal opinion, really. Please refer to universities here. We're condensing information of hundreds and thousands of universities, but I've seen, largely, we can really put the degree structures available in the world today into three categories. You have the English structure, which is a 3-year degree, which is very specific. You apply for a particular subject, that's what you study, and you can complete your degree in 3 years. But you don't often have the flexibility that the United States may offer in the liberal arts and sciences, where you can go undecided. You have a core curriculum, you can pick up different pockets of subjects. You don't have to declare your major really till you're done with your first year, and so on. So that's the other extreme, where you have the liberal arts, where you can go in and declare a major later, study different subjects. So it's quite a broad curriculum, but you normally have to take different pockets of subjects. But really, for me, what's important is the Scottish system. And I think sometimes when we think about the United Kingdom, we forget that Scotland actually has a 4-year model, which is similar to Canada, which is similar to the United States and other parts of the world, where you can actually benefit from both breadth and flexibility. And so you do, when you apply through the Ucas or in other ways, you do declare a major in most cases, but we allow our students actually to pick up 3 subjects in their first year. And this can be anything in your faculty. So we don't determine what this subject may be. But you can take up 3 subjects, and it's only after 2 years that you can actually make up your mind and decide, do I want to continue with what I decided? Maybe you want to combine 2 subjects and take a joint degree. So you do have flexibility available in the United Kingdom. You do have that at St. Andrews, but largely Scotland does offer more flexibility as well. So for those of you thinking about the United States, maybe do want to be a little bit closer to home, this can be a good option for you. So do look at Scotland in that regard. So let's take a look at what we do. I think that's really the fifth and most unique aspect of St. Andrews is the degree structure. So we have 4 faculties that we put our students into. We have the arts, the sciences, medicine, and divinity. Something very interesting, we call our what would be an equivalent to an undergraduate degree in arts, we call it an MA. So it's not a BA, it's terminology that we've really used for centuries. So we continue to use that. So if you are applying for an undergraduate degree in the arts faculty, it will be called an MA. So something that you might want to make a note of and not get confused during the time of your application. But here's a list of some subjects, and we've got the arts subjects, the sciences, and the unique group of subjects that we have at St. Andrews is in the cross faculty. So these are subjects that can be done in either of the 2 faculties, namely the arts or the sciences. And we have many different combinations. If you wanted to do economics with computer science, you wanted to do economics and international relations. So there's many different joint degree options. But where the cross faculty is unique is what else do you want to study? If you want to take up a computer science in your first year, you then must apply for the science faculty, whether that be economics or management as well. That's the faculty that you're going to be applying to. And if you want to study these cross faculty subjects with one of the arts faculty subjects, then you must apply for the MA honors in that particular subject. So many different combinations and different subjects that you can take up. And these are larger titles. For example, in biology we might have zoology, biochemistry, molecular biology. So these are just the broader headlines, but of course there are some different options within these subjects as well. What does this look like visually? this is an example of the MA. Let me give you my own example. I think it's always better. And so I'd applied for, philosophy and economics, and then I took up management. So instantly you can start to see the flexibility and breadth coming into play. That's normally something that you find difficult to do in a 3-year program. So I took these 3 subjects, I studied them for 2 years, and then I was actually one of the approximately 40% of students who changed their minds, and I decided I actually wanted to continue with management. But I had the option of actually maybe taking up management and economics, maybe doing it with something combined with philosophy as well. And then third and fourth year is the time where I could really specialize. You have many different options. Do you want to take up something in marketing, in HR, in entrepreneurship, in philanthropy, in NGOs? That's where you do your dissertation, your research, and you really specialize in the area within the subject that you might want to do as well. So you start off broad. So it's a pyramid structure, if you want to call it that, where you can actually start off with a few different subjects. And as you move and progress through your academic career and you find your likes and dislikes, you can actually chip away and start to find what you actually want to do. So it's a very unique structure, and this is what makes us really popular and makes us stand out in the larger context as well. So some more examples, I gave you mine, but visually it's always easier to look at some. So again, in the Faculty of Arts, you take up 3 subjects in your first few years. Someone here studying ancient history, but taking up the option of studying Spanish and philosophy. So again, related subjects. Taking up a language might be something that may be career oriented. They want to do something maybe with an organization that works in Spain as well, and they want that language on their CV. But equally, maybe it's just something that they want to do out of interest. And then they decide, we actually love to study this, and they've changed their mind and taken up a joint honor. So that's something that is available to you. Science subjects, you start to find your niche a little bit sooner. So you go from 3 subjects in the first year to 2 in the second year. And in a lot of cases, we see the science students start off with a broader subject, in this case biology, and then as you move through your academic years, you actually find a niche. And you can see in this case, someone has found that niche in marine biology, and then you do your research and specialization accordingly. So it's a really unique degree structure, and like I said, it's something that's unusual for the United Kingdom and something that really makes us stand out. In terms of teaching, we follow many different ways of assessing students, and at the end of it, we want to make sure that you have all the skills that you need, to go on and progress in your career. So we have lectures, but we also have small tutorials. So you might, in the same week that you have a lecture, might actually be in a tutorial with the professor and maybe 6 to 12 students, and you're really engaging your point of view, you're arguing your perspective, taking in what you learned in the lecture, doing your reading, looking at research, and then really arguing your point. Maybe you disagree with something, maybe you want to talk about something in a different context, in a different perspective, and that's your chance to do that. But equally, science students have the opportunity of a lot of practical work, lab work. Your assessment is going to be research based. I had some modules that were maybe 50% exam based, and then you had 20% which might have been a group project. You had 30% which might have been a 2 3,000 word research report. So there's many different ways that we try and equip our students to make sure that they know what they're heading in for, in their careers, and we do different ways of assessing students as well. So there is a focus on independent learning. We do expect our students to be able to work independently, do their own reading independently. There'll be a lot of support from our academics and other support services as well. But make sure that you are aware that largely we will have an expectation for you to do your own reading, to manage your own time, but there is still a lot of support available to students. So let's move on. Really, we're moving on to the bit which is really starting to talk about the application process, and everything I've said is fine, but we are extremely competitive. So what makes for a competitive application? So I'm not sure about what all in the context of where you all are coming from today. So I will address both UK applicants as well as international applicants. So when we talk about you being a UK applicant, then you do have a deadline of the 25th of January to apply. If you're looking at next September, for medical students you are looking at the 15th of October, and that is the Oxford Cambridge deadline as well. For international students, we accept three ways of applying. We are one of the few universities that do accept the common application, which is the way that most would apply to the United States. Of course, the Ucas is the most popular way of applying, and for those who maybe just want to apply to us, you can use the direct application as well. Important thing to note is it's a maximum of 5 courses that you can apply to in the United Kingdom. So it's not to use both methods of applying and trying to apply to 7 or 8 or 9 colleges. You do need to make sure that you use one method of applying. It's a maximum of 5 universities or courses. So that's something to keep in mind. For international students, the same deadline for medicine or science related, medical related courses is the 15th of October. Um, if you are looking at applying from India, I'll come to this later as well, but we do recommend you try and apply as early as possible. And it's St. Andrew's Day is the 30th of November, and we are recommending that Indian students do try and apply before that. It does get very competitive if you leave it late. So even though the equal consideration deadline is the 25th, we will read applications, but really try and apply as early as possible. It's only beneficial to you. So we try and reply to students in about 5 or 6 weeks, but this can vary depending on the subject that you're applying for, the time that you apply, and how busy it might be during that time scale. So just a few points to keep in mind. We come to probably why all of you are here today and what really makes for a competitive application to the University of St. Andrews. And like I said, we are in the top bracket of competitive universities. We look at three aspects, and let's look at the Ucas application. I think that's how most of you will end up applying to us. There's four main parts to the Ucas application. So we've got your personal details, academic qualifications, academic reference, and the personal statement. So if I just don't talk about the personal details, that's something everyone will need to fill in. We have three main components of this application process. It's very different to the United States, where you might have multiple essays to write and a lot of different information that you might be submitting and available to those assessing. But in the UK, we have three components, so it makes it very easy to apply, but also we don't have much in terms of what we can look at. So let's look at each one of these in detail. So when we talk about entry requirements, let's look at largely what we look for. We assess our students holistically. We follow a contextual admissions process. So what does this mean? This means it's not just meeting the grade requirements. It's not just having the personal statement or a good reference. We take all the different factors of the application process into consideration when we make a positive decision on an applicant. The first component of this, of course, is the entry requirements. So I'm going to talk about some of the standard entry requirements that we have. We look at about a 90% average across all your subjects, whether it's the ISC or the CBSE. So those are the Indian boards. IB, it ranges from about 36 to 38. Most subjects tend to be in that 38 bracket, and then we will have HL and SL requirements in sub-subjects. For the A levels, again, there's a range. But again, just remember, this doesn't mean you get an offer. This is just the standard entry requirements that we may look at. We also have subject specific requirements. So let's take the example of computer science, right? So you can see on your screen, that's what we have on the website. So we require 38 sixes across your HLs, and then we also require you to get a HL6 in mathematics. So alongside the general score, what we also expect you to meet is, in some cases, specific subject requirements. And as you can see here, we also require an SL5 in one of the following subjects, so in the science subjects as well. So even if you meet the standard overall requirements, are also important to meet the subject specific requirements. If you don't do that, you're technically not meeting our standard entry requirements. So very important that you look at the subject that you're applying for. If you are confused, please do ask, not just for St. Andrews, but any university you're looking at in the UK. Go and reach out to them and try and find out what those minimum entry requirements are. We make conditional offers in most cases. We are one of the few universities that will accept additional testing. It's optional, it's not mandatory, but if you are giving the SATs, ACTs, APs, and you want us to know about it, you can submit it to us. We will take a look. They're not a substitute for your high school grades, but they certainly will be looked at, and we do look at that. We don't normally have an interview process. We have for a few subjects in the past, but again, if you are looking at Oxford and Cambridge and so on, you might want to make sure that you prepare yourself for that selection process as well. Second part of what makes for a successful application. I cannot stress enough the importance of a personal statement. Any competitive university will be using this piece of work to, in most cases, make offers or not make offers. It's one third of your application, and I would argue it's actually more important than one third. But it's about 47 lines, about 4,000 characters, whatever comes first. So it's about 1.5 A4 sheets of paper if you're looking at about a 10 to 12 font. So it's not a lot of space. So it's not a CV, it's not a cover letter, it's not an opportunity for you to start listing all your achievements. You won't have space to do that. What you really want to do in a personal statement is find those few instances that showcases your passion and interest for the subject that you're applying for. That is extremely important. I normally recommend when I speak with students is keep it academically focused, showcase your reading, your other experiences related to the subject that directly related. A subject specific experience is very important. So about 70% should be about the subject, your passion for the subject. About 25-30% can be extracurriculars. It can talk about your leadership roles, talking about transferable skills, communication, sports, and alike. But the bulk should be showcasing passion and interest for the subject. A commitment to the subject area is extremely important. We're not expecting a perfect piece of work from you. So we're not looking at your vocabulary and talking about particular ways of formulating this piece of work, but a clear structure, correct grammar, correct spelling. If you're talking about, for example, spelling words in the way that the US dictionary does it, stick to that. Have some consistency. Space out your paragraphs. Express yourself clearly. I think that's really important. Talk about your reading. Tell a story. It's not a CV, like I said before. So I think those aspects are really important. Make sure that you understand that this piece of work is actually going to all five of your choices. So don't use a particular university name or a title of a particular course, because they might like it but other universities won't. So I think that's really important. Subject is key. Your passion for the subject is key. Talk about what you want to learn, subtopics. You can talk about internships, reading, many different ways of writing a personal statement. But at the core of what makes for a good statement and what we look for is a passion and interest for the subject coming through. Third aspect is the reference. And while you may not have, as a student or a parent listening in, ability to talk about the reference, but I did want to talk about why it's important, and just some basics that the counselors may want to look at. So of course, it's just one reference. So it's not two, three different references, and in fact, most universities may not accept more than one reference. So if you are wanting to send something more, it's worth asking that particular institution if they will accept a direct additional reference. But it should be academically written. We want to know about the academic ability of a particular student, their interaction, how the student is in the classroom, and suitable for this particular subject as well. So skills that may be applicable to that particular subject that the student is applying for. Maybe some weaknesses, maybe the student is working on those. This cannot be written by friends and family. This does need to be written by ideally someone from the school, your tutors, your college counselor, teachers, principals. It doesn't matter who's writing it. So some people have this, again, a little bit of a misconception that if the principal writes it, it's going to be more effective. No, it should be someone who knows the student and can talk about what the student is like academically in the classroom. That's what's important. And it goes without saying, if you're applying for a particular subject, it may make more sense to go out and get that reference from a teacher who is teaching that subject. And the more recent, the better, of course. So, for example, if you're applying for biology, it might be worth, the teacher or the counselor talking about skills in terms of lab work and practical aspects of it, how you are in the lab, and aspects of that. But also your referee may want to actually talk about, predicted grades, additional qualifications. Is there a particular subject that the school doesn't teach to the students? We want to know that. Did a subject did a student, maybe if there's a circumstance that a student changed from the CBSE to the IB, maybe the reference wants to talk about a process where the student found it difficult to adapt and is now really flourishing, and so on. So again, for the reference, it goes back to that little bit about the personal statement, but really talking in detail about interests, and why a student may be interested in a particular course, the motivation for it, achievements in the subject. Is there something that maybe the student hasn't been able to write in the personal statement, but the referee does write it? And then we take a look at both aspects and see what it's like. And then about 10 to 25% can be about the school. In some cases, schools also now have started putting in some percentile scores, just to help us understand, in a more practical sense, where the student stands in terms of the predicted grades, or the 11th grades, or the 10th grades, because we do ask for grades 10th onwards, and so that's something that we may look at. So those are the three main aspects, and I think coming back to what makes for a successful application is all three aspects complementing each other and standing out and really showcasing a passion and aptitude for the particular subject that the student is applying for. So all three components really need to be strong to make for a successful St. Andrews application. So in terms of cost, and I do want to talk about scholarships here, and I'll spend a few minutes on that. But we're talking at about, for the 23-24 intake, roughly about £28,000 is the tuition fee annually. Medical courses tend to be a little bit more expensive, and it's a 6-year medical program with us. In that sense, accommodation and living costs can vary. It depends on whether you find a room to share with someone, whether you want your own food made for you. There's different combinations, and so that may vary. So I've just given an approximation there. But we do have scholarships, and I think this is something that I really want to get across to students who may be applying to the UK. There is a misconception. The UK does give scholarships, but they are not normally in that region of the United States. The United States does have a little bit more of a ability to give you that 60, 70, 80%. But also do remember that in a lot of cases, the US may be more expensive as well, if you compare to England and Scotland in particular. So worth noting that St. Andrews has a lot of scholarships. Range is maybe starting at about £2,000, and then it goes up to even a fully funded scholarship for international students, which is closer to that £25,000 range. There's a few available, but we have many different scholarships and packages in the middle. So worth applying for, worth noting that it is there. But again, this is more of a help to your academics in most cases, to help you support your academics, I should say, rather than trying to fully fund your academics, even though there are some options there. When we talk about scholarships, no one at St. Andrews is normally automatically considered. You can apply and should apply for your scholarships even before you get your place at St. Andrews. So you send in your application. Within a few days, we send out a student ID, and you'll get an email from us, with links to applying for scholarships. And I think you should do that at that stage. You might be asked to submit some extra documentation, might be asked equally to talk about an additional essay that you might need to write, and why you may be the right candidate for that scholarship. And we have both need-based and merit-based scholarships available to students. So something that you can take a look at on the website. Like I said, there's a range of different scholarships available to international students. And keep a check on the deadlines, because these scholarships do have early deadlines, and so I won't want any of you applying to miss out on those. So we do have scholarships, and something that students can take a look at as well. Lastly, I want to talk about, before I take on some questions, and maybe just in the next maybe 4 to 5 minutes, but talk to you about what makes university life interesting. And starting off with accommodation, we do guarantee our first year undergraduate students accommodation as long as you apply by the deadline. Many different options. I was in a university hall called John Burnett, which is one of the oldest halls at the university. Very, very compact, cozy, just about 150 students living in that accommodation, and you really get to know everyone. It was a catered accommodation. I had food available. We had our own mini library, lots of social events taking place, a little bit of inter hall rivalry that goes on as well, but many different options available to students. And we are one of those few universities that do allow our students to stay on in accommodation as well. So if you do want to stay on in your second year, third year, fourth year, you can reapply. Of course, our preference is given to first year, so it's not guaranteed anymore, but you can reapply. And a lot of our students do actually end up staying in accommodation beyond the first year as well. The most unique aspect about St. Andrews is the clubs and societies. Every day something or the other is happening. Whether it be the CEO of a company coming and speaking with the students, whether it be the Indian Society hosting, an event with just a Bollywood night, or whatever that may be. There's many different societies, and the range is, from an investment society, management society, to maybe something like a Pokemon society, whatever floats your boat. So there's really something for everyone. And I find every student at St. Andrews, at least in my time, was associated with at least a few societies. And you can be a passive member where you can go and attend events, or you can be more active. You can get on the committee. We have fashion shows which are charity based, and you everything is organized by students. It was covered in my times, by the large publications, and it was really done at a grand stage. And you can get involved with the committees and so on. Equally, if you just wanted to be a passive member, you can do that, and the same extends for the sports. We have many different sports available. Students can compete at different levels. But equally, if you just wanted to book out the cricket pitch and play some cricket, or play six-a-side football with your friends, you can do that. I was a golfer. I went to play golf, and I played for the third team, and a little bit for the second team. And you can compete as well, but many different options. And lastly, lot of support available at every level, and I think that's really important. We've just gone through a few years which have been very difficult for everyone through COVID, and we've just realized that there is a lot of support that students may need. And really at St. Andrews, we make sure that students have all the support that they may need, whether it being well-being, whether it be financial, whether it be trying to get documentation to apply for a Schengen visa. It could be anything. But it's your home for 4 years, and want to make sure that that's as comfortable as it can be for you. um I'm an alum, and I've always really resonated with this concept. If you really want to know about a university, try and see if you can get a virtual tour. If you have the opportunity to go and visit St. Andrews, please do that. I can't tell you what a special and unique town it is. The minute you step into St. Andrews, it feels very special. But we do have this opportunity for those who maybe don't have the ability to go and take a look before they start their education at St. Andrews. Book a virtual Q&A. We have a lot of ambassadors. There's students studying there. Equally, we have alumni who are willing to engage. So take a look at that. Speak with people who've been there. It's I can't stress enough. Academically, of course, I think we set ourselves apart, and great opportunities academically. But when I think about my time, and I've spoken to a lot of my friends about this, you think about that one cafe that used to be a popular spot on your walk towards the management building, or um, that one shop that everyone wanted to go to because it maybe had the best deals on stationery or whatever that may be. And I think the more practical aspects, that's what an alum or a current student can tell you about. So great opportunity with us. Go out, book those virtual tours, and talk with our ambassadors. I think that's really important as well. So that's me. I hope I've covered a lot of aspects about St. Andrews. uh, Equally about what makes for a successful application to us. And I think now we have some opportunities to take on some questions, hopefully. And I'll be more than happy to talk about that. So I'll stop sharing my screen. I think we we have maybe about 10-15 minutes for questions, and I'll let you help me with that if that's okay.
Absolutely much. We're some major. Um, I think start off with a few questions. The audience perhaps have seconds to type in their comment box. The ranking, you who are watching, um, and as per the latest Guardian rank, Andrews has now surpassed. So, yeah, congratulations. Just, I think in terms of that you very beautiful. It's like it's a best of both. It's a combination of the and the US. What you understand, and this is a question that is because one has to St. Andrews via the Ucas and very different application platform. Because also in terms of the art, you want the students to put in terms of and whatnot. Does that really make your looking whether it comes from the UCAS or direct application to St. Andrews?
Thank you. So I think firstly, it's brilliant. When we talk about rankings, we've consistently been, in the top three for a while, and it's nice to break into that bracket, and it's credit to
Absolutely,
academics, really. I think it's
for sure.
it's it's not just the work we do, but it's the supporting teams, and everything plays a role in that. So I think academics really, especially the last 2 years, really went above and beyond, and
Yeah,
we're working literally through the clock to make sure that students got the best experience. So no, thank you for that, and hopefully we're able to maintain that. When it comes to the application process, and just correct me if I'm understanding your question wrong, but we have three ways of applying,
yeah,
and the UCAS is by far the most popular way, and I would really say if you're
for sure.
applying to more than one UK course, I think that's the way you should go. The Common App really is a way for a lot of the US students to apply. I think a lot of people, maybe again, if I pose this question even to you, where do you think the largest international population comes from? And normally people would say India, China, South Korea. That's generally what it is. In fact, our largest international population is US based, which is quite
The
unique. And so I think it's often just an easier process for someone who is applying to US colleges. You just want to add another option on the Common App. So that is the case, but no preference given to any one way of applying. And so we look for the same
got it.
aspect. We may ask you to write a supplement essay in the UCAS, which is basically another prompt like the personal statement. And we really just pick out the bits that we need. So we have no preference. In fact, I would say stick to the UCAS. That's a very easy way. It's also comparatively cheaper than most other ways of applying. And you
Yes,
if you are applying to more places, I think that's the way to go. But it's also my duty to let you know there are other ways of applying. But again, maximum of five is there, and really just use one method. It's not a mix and match approach that we want to
absolutely.
have.
Um, the other thing that when a student is applying to across the board for admission is conditional, right? The offers are conditional. Opportunity for a student to receive an offer from St. Andrews on the basis of their academic grades and not the final score.
So what we do essentially is, you'll be applying as a student as you enter your 12th grade. So a lot of times, students won't have their final examination grade. So what the predicted grades normally is it's a combination of maybe your first semester exams, the 11th grade. It's what the school predicts that you get. So on the basis of that, what we essentially do is we look at that application, but we put a basic benchmark for our students to say, we like the application, we like what you submitted. Clearly, the predicted grades indicate that you're likely to achieve standard criteria, but we do require you to achieve XYZ percentage or whatever points in the IB. And as long as you meet this, you have your space. So we make your offer unconditional. So that's what a conditional offer means. But as long as you meet those set requirements in the condition, in your offer, then you have your place. As it's as simple as that. So that's a conditional offer. Now we do on a case by case basis when we have multiple scores available to us. Again, going back to that holistic approach, it's not just your exams or whatever, where students do submit multiple scores that they've achieved already. So that's it. It's not predictive. It's achieved scores, whether it's the SAT, ACT, subject test, whatever that may be, on a unique case by case basis. Sometimes where we see enough information, or a student took a gap year and has already sat the exams, maybe the previous year. In those cases, we have the ability to make an unconditional offer. But again, this is something where we need some sort of basis for achieved grades, and then we can make those. So it's very much case by case,
Documents.
but in most cases you will see conditional offers from us. That's what's the common process.
Okay, super. But then I'm saying that St. Andrews does. So okay, cool.
Yeah.
The other, and this is something that comes in from a lot. I'm sure you've heard this as well. Up meeting the condition. How much there? Because I mean, you did also mention data is something that is taken in which across the board that UK colleges aren't they're very traditional, they're very strict, and said you need to be able to achieve this. And, would you say that St. Andrews is different, and maybe there is student or perhaps the students to make a case in the chances that for meet the condition?
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that's a really good question. So I think two aspects to this. The first aspect is at the time of applying. And so, you want to be as close to the standard requirements. Now, it's not a cutoff as we have in India, and again, maybe the audience here is Indian today, but it doesn't mean if you meet that criteria, you'll get in, or the person with the highest score gets in. That's where the holistic approach comes in. We want to see that you're meeting those standard requirements, but alongside that, if there is someone who's got a higher grade than you, but isn't reflecting that in the personal statement or the passion, then you're not going to be competitive. And even if you're just at the benchmark but you have some great experience and your interest and passion is really coming through, you're likely to be more competitive as well. So I think at the application stage, of course, it's not a cutoff. We read every application, but
Yeah.
goes without saying, when you're applying to selective universities where we it's something where we unfortunately don't have seats available, you do need to meet those requirements. I won't want to try and paint a rosy picture. It's
Of course.
important to meet it, but
Yeah.
but yes, if you've met it, then it doesn't matter whether you're at a 44. And of course, try and be as high as you can, but every component is important. Now, the second aspect to your question, I think, is at the time of that conditional offer being made unconditional. And I can really say that, specifically this year, unfortunately, anyone who missed a condition, it was very unlikely that we'll get any consideration, because we just do have a lot of students who meet their conditions, and it's very difficult if you met your condition, if you missed your condition. So that's something that students need to know beforehand, that we do not really have that ability to make you an offer if you missed your condition, and that's something that's difficult to say. I know sometimes exams can go wrong and things like that,
Yeah.
but just with how competitive we are, meeting that conditional offer, not just the overall score but the subject conditions as well, is really, really important.
Last question. This is again something that comes in time. Location role when you're having identifying the right fit, and students always want to be in the middle of nowhere. A question for you to also answer on campus yourself. That apprehension for you when you writing
Yeah.
or considering St. Anne, how did that change? What was life like?
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting because I think the information that we have today, certainly wasn't available a decade back. So
Yeah.
we were really just going by sometimes the names out there or where a senior has gone from school and so on. And I think a campus or a campus style university has so much to offer. I worked briefly in London after graduating, and often when you are in a city, and again, this is my own personal opinion here, but your campus or buildings are scattered around, and you live in, let's say, zone 3 in London or somewhere, that's where accommodation tends to be. You take a train and you just meet those people, then you go back, and it's almost in some ways going for a job. Yes, a city has a lot to offer beyond just being in university, so it's about the right fit. It's not right or wrong, but certainly I think what a university town or a campus style university has to offer is being 5 minutes away from someone, or walking to your classroom, and meeting everyone from different subjects, and that society, those concepts of societies and tradition and so on, there's far greater when you talk about older towns based universities with a campus, whether it's Oxford, Cambridge, St Andrews, Durham. There is that integration into the community, into the society, and
Yeah.
and I think that's what you need. You can always be in a city, you can work in a
Yeah.
city all your life, but to have that comfort, that safety factor, just being able to grow personally and develop, I think is something that probably is very underrated in a campus style university. So just the aspect of, I want to have coffee with someone, walk 2 minutes down the line, knock on their door, let's go for coffee, where is it? It's 3 minutes away. And things like that is very unique, I think. And I think something that maybe I should have addressed in my presentation, but gone are the days where you can actually just go to a company and submit your CV. That's not what
Yeah.
happens. So a lot of students often ask about
Yeah.
being outside the city. What about careers? I mean, we have probably one of the biggest career offices. We have about 250 top employers coming to campus. We have fairs. We equip you with that. We work one on one with students. That service is available. And we're just an hour from Edinburgh, 25 minutes from Dundee. If at all you want to be in a city, you can go there. But you have to go through the process today. You have to do your aptitude tests. You have to do your phone interviews. If you need to go to London, you can do that for your interviews. And so we do find that now you have to go through those processes, and if you do need to be in city for an interview or whatever that may be, you can do that. So it's really no longer a drawback in that sense, and there's so many jobs on campus. I mean, it's funny when I look back at my journey, because I used to work part time as a receptionist at the admissions office, and looking at what I'm doing today, there's clearly something linked somewhere. So
Yeah.
a campus environment also gives you that opportunity. You can work on campus. You can do so many things. It's a student town, and I think that's also something that's a positive for being in a campus style university as well, rather than in a city.
Absolutely.
So just some factors. We can go on and discuss many things, but I think
Of
it's you certainly don't need anything more in a campus, because there's so much to do, and everything is centered around students and the university, which actually may not be the case, which is reflected when we talk about student satisfaction as well.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a very relevant point you made about opportunities that are available to seeing. This is something that we've seen COVID, where it's an undergraduate program, right? That's your prospects, and students look at when they're considered great, that you could shed some St. Andrews does for its students. I think that sums it up for today. We hope to have you and talk more about and all of the wonderful opportunities for students. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone for joining.
Uh,
If you have any other questions, support at the rate college pass.
no,
Happy
thank you,
to address
thank you to
them.
College Pass and to yourself for having me, and I think to everyone listening in today, thank you for spending your evening with us, and please do reach out, through whatever medium, and happy to answer questions later on as well. So pleasure being here, and thank you again for the platform and the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank